Well, obviously, it can go one of three ways. The court's going to either throw it out, in which case, when the prosecutions, Donald Trump will immediately resume. They could decide that Trump is right. He should be immune. That case pretty much ends at that moment. Or they could kind of try to split the baby a little bit, at which point the case could drag on for many more months. The judge presiding over this case said that in the event that the court kind of splits this a little bit, there will be time to weed out which provisions apply to this case, which ones don't. She's already said that she'll give Donald Trump's legal team 3 months before they have to come back before the court. This could very likely push an outcome of this particular situation to be on the November election. So those are really the only three avenues that can go here. We'll see how the court decides to rule. And again, the thing to keep in mind, too, it's bigger than Donald Trump. This is something that will impact every president from here on out. When the court makes a decision like this, you can't just make it about the contemporary time that we live in, but assume and try to presume what every president going forward, how they would wield that power, or how they would wield, in this case, immunity from any criminal prosecution while in office.
Yeah, Gorsuch calling it a ruling for the ages. Dr. Wright, over to you. What are the political implications for Mr. Trump about this?
Well, if they rule in favor of Trump's team, then that will, I think, be very energizing for both Trump's base in a certain way, but also, for Democrats, I think especially, they will be very angry. And Democrats have been looking for ways to get their voters engaged, to get their voters to recognize the stakes of this election. And the linchpin of that, the central talking point of theirs, is democracy is at risk if Trump is put in charge again. And so really, these Supreme Court cases, I think, no matter which way they go, do have political implications, but they're from both bases of voters. I think for swing voters, it might muddy the waters. And, it's a really big case. It is one for the ages. The justices are thinking about future presidents. And it's not an easy issue because you could easily see the implications negatively for giving presidents too little or too much power. And so we might not see a perfectly predictable outcome here. The justices in some cases on voting rights, Native American rights, for instance, have ruled in unexpected ways, but largely it's a court that approves of executive power and sort of a vast definition of that.
Trump is obviously hoping for an outcome in his favor, but even still, there's a sizable delay in his alleged election interference case, potentially until after November's election. Is delaying this trial a political win for him as well, Kurt?
Yeah, I think that we have seen for pretty much every case that Donald Trump has been fighting that their initial legal strategy has been try to punt this, to push this as far beyond the election as possible, because I think that they realize, listen, if Donald Trump gets reelected to the presidency again, none of these prosecutions are going to go anywhere at that point. The Justice Department will be under his control. They're not going to prosecute the sitting president of their own political party. They go away. So in many ways, the stakes are incredibly high for Donald Trump in this election because he's very much could be fighting for his own freedom, or at the very least fighting to ensure that these prosecutions do not move forward in any other way.
Dr. Wright, what's your take on this?
I get in a lot of trouble when I guess, so I'll try not to. And I have been surprised by some of the decisions by the Supreme Court in the past couple of years. But I would say that when in doubt, it's often a court of justices that thinks about the dangers of restricting presidents too much rather than being too permissive. And so if you think about that Fitzgerald case that's at the center of a lot of these arguments a few months ago when we were able to sort of listen and analyze to some of what the justices were saying, that was a case in which an ex-Air Force employee tried to sue President Nixon because he testified before Congress lost his job when he was talking about a faulty plane. And that was when Nixon was out of office. And so that's the comparable case a lot of people point to. So you can really see both sides. You could see where you don't want presidents to be restricted from making good decisions because they're worried about future prosecution. But also, of course, the very scary possibility is that presidents do feel above the law. They feel they can do anything while they're in office and that they're protected after no matter what.
This upcoming ruling could play into a bigger factor in the election, which is the former president's legal troubles as well. The first presidential debate, of course, we're closely tracking this less than a week away. Kurt, back over to you. How big of a factor do you think the former president's legal battles will be in this debate?
Well, I think it could be. I think this is the opportunity for President Biden for the first time to go face to face with Donald Trump and call him a convicted criminal, convicted felon, which is something that we've never seen in the history of this country. One of the two men who are going to be the major party's political nominees for president standing on the stage, and one of them is a convicted criminal. This is uncharted territory, and it is political fodder. We've seen already the Biden campaign, utilize this and some of the messaging and ads that they put out. Certainly, all Democrat allies and groups and super PACs are releasing a never-ending stream of content about this, and I don't expect that to stop. We've even seen just in different polling models now that it has moved the needle that, in the last 2 weeks since this decision came down of Donald Trump's conviction, Trump has fallen 2 to 3 points. Biden has risen 2 to 3 points. And just a Fox News poll released yesterday showed that Biden was actually up over Trump. The only thing that's changed in the last couple of weeks for that to happen has been the conviction of Donald Trump.
Understood. And we're looking at these latest numbers now, 50% for Joe Biden there. This is within the margin of error, but it is notable to see Donald Trump down those 2 points. Dr. Wright, what will you be watching for most closely during this debate?
Gosh, I mean, it's never happened to me before, but frankly, the age of both candidates, Biden's ability to come back at Trump in real time in a smart, substantive way, I do think that the onus is on Biden to perform, not Trump. The yardstick by which we measure Trump has always been different. We think he's not really a politician. He's just this sort of outside of the beltway celebrity that says crazy things all the time. And so he is judged according to different standards by voters. And so Biden's in the much tougher position to perform, not only because of the questions about his age, but really because debating Donald Trump is a nightmare. He doesn't follow the rules. He makes personal attacks. And then the other candidate has to decide, do I get in the mud with this guy or do I try to stay above the fray? And in Biden's case, if he just tries to stay above the fray and not respond, people might say, oh, he's feeble, he's weak, he's not really with it. So I don't know what they're telling him. Maybe Kurt has a better idea, but it's a tall order.
Okay. Dr. Lauren Wright, Kurt Bardella, I appreciate both of your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break. We're going to continue to monitor the Supreme Court's decisions throughout the morning as they are released. We'll be right back.